Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap for Wednesday, the 20th of February. Another day in the market. Materials really broke out. We saw that break yesterday, and well, they weren't messing around. They broke and they ran, as we will soon see. We still have quite a few earnings coming up before tomorrow's open. Tomorrow, before the open, you've got a handful, including Nuance Mining, as well as Hormel. Here tonight, as you can see, we have about 10 S&P 500 companies reporting as well. None of the super huge names, but if you're an S&P 500 company, you're not small. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. Good afternoon, Patricia. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had a great day, both in and out of the market. It's always great to have you guys with me here. It's kind of a nice market. It just kind of well-behaved. No sell signals. It just keeps going up, right? So we will take it as long as it wants to do that. A lot of indecision here today. We technically won S&P closing in the green, barely here today. But if you look at us on a 15-minute time frame, I mean, really today was a whole lot of back and forth overall in the market. Fed minutes really not much of a response one way or the other, as I think was kind of to be expected. Nothing earth-shattering or dramatic came out of it. So looks like from a technical point of view, not a lot is going to have changed for us here today. Taking a look at our S&P from on the daily perspective, not much to say that we've not been saying for a bit. Still continuing that slow, methodical march up into that 28-20 range, wherever you're actually calling it. I'm calling it the range. So, I'll keep an eye on 28 for sure. But because of just the nature of the roundness of it. But we have resistance at 28.20. So somewhere in that ballpark, our next challenge. Not a lot to see here. Just another day, a very flat day. Not a lot of oomph behind this, but certainly nothing terrible or wrong or any sell signals generated here today. Over in the NASDAQ, another day hanging around, trying to figure out what it wants to do at that 200-day moving average. It just continues to have a hard time picking up any steam. It's one of those situations, we talked about it before. It's not doing anything wrong. It's just not doing anything right. It really is kind of stuck. As it looks like investors are going into energy, finance, materials, utilities. We're seeing a lot of good movement, in a lot of the different sectors, and it's just not happening right now in tech and a lot of the communication services companies that kind of are tech-like. So, hey, good afternoon, Tanner. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Hope it's warm. I think we're supposed to get more snow here today. Had a little breather, but I'm going to choose to not believe the weatherman. But we'll see how that one works. So just keep an eye on it. Definitely showing, relative weakness to the other areas of the market. I think right now, just doesn't seem to have. No one wants to go against it, right? You're not really seeing much selling. You're just not seeing that buying. Beyond that, if we can ever kind of push through this trading range, I would expect into the 7,200 area as our next level of resistance. But we've got to get through this first. Maybe, as this 9 EMA catches up, will kind of give us that push it needs, or maybe we need to consolidate a little bit. We're going to have to wait and see. These guys are very indecisive right now, not a clear sign. The Dow, on the other hand, much like the S&P, having no such issues. Hey, Michael, good to see you, my friend. Just continuing to work up again, whether it's, the resistance back here that we broke, the resistance back here that we basically closed right at today, or the actual high point, which I think is probably where I'm looking right now. We still, are showing tremendous strength overall in the Dow Jones. Industrials remain strong. Finance had a pretty respectable day too. So no real signs of slowing down just yet. Still a little bit of room before we run into the top. So whether it's this is definitely resistance, right? We could argue, the short term retracement, this turnaround. We could argue those points, but we definitely are all on the same page of resistance up here at around 26,150 or so. So we want to keep an eye on that, obviously, but we got some room between here and there. Another good day for the Russell, too, leading the charge yet again here, up 0.46, if I can say that, percent on the day, running right up into that swing level of resistance and rewarded with a challenge at that 200-day moving average right above us. We want to keep an eye on that. Not that I'm bearish at 1600 by any stretch of the imagination, but that is a 200-day moving average. We have had a nice run. That is an old pivot point, so definitely worth monitoring as a potential resistance zone that might give us at least a little bit of a pause or a pullback. Again, in this market right now, resistance is just a short-term bump in the road in most cases. But then you see things like the NASDAQ, and tell that to the NASDAQ. It's not feeling the same way at all. It's another good solid day in the Russell as we get pretty darn close to testing that 200-day moving average, which is flat, as well as that nice round 1600 mark. In that ballpark, we've had a major breakout point. So you can kind of see going back into last year, we had kind of a little triple top breakout develop at that approximately 1600 range. So we've got history here. Definitely going to be an interesting one to watch, no doubt. Good afternoon, Whitney. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you guys all had a good day trading here today. It was a pretty mellow day. Our friends over in the materials sector, I expected, that break to be a bullish signal. That wasn't really, no surprise with the way I kind of think and do things. But wow, I wasn't expecting it to be that bullish today. I was expecting a little follow through and some nice movement up into resistance. We basically filled up all of that space here today, working into this old resistance zone, an old support zone. We've been here before, lining up with that 200-day moving average, a little bit of short-term resistance that we're going to have to get through in this sector. I continue to like this sector, love it today. I'll like it a lot more if we can win that fight. Beyond that, there definitely is some room in my mind to run. We're going to have some little things, maybe some old support in this 58 zone, definitely some old resistance in the 61 zone, but definitely some upside room in my mind, at least, within this sector. We're going to have to challenge this resistance. And I didn't expect to have this conversation today. I expected we'd have this conversation eventually, just not today. But boy, it really got running here today. I guess we weren't the only ones looking at that break yesterday as a buy signal. Goodness gracious, really solid day. And this individual components of this sector, look pretty strong. If you take a look at some of the top players, of course, we have DWDP, Dow DuPont, who after a pretty rough earnings, I don't love this chart as a potential trading opportunity. It just doesn't fit my style, but showing a lot of strength after that earnings gap. You've got something like Lynn, who's basically breaking out as we speak. You have Ecolabs here that had a good, solid earnings report, hitting all-time highs just yesterday. You've got Sherwin-Williams just breaking through some resistance here today. Air Products broke out last week out of a very long-term sideways range, showing a lot of strength, to me at least, within this sector. I expect that I'm going to continue to like this sector in the shorter term. Lots of room, I think, for me at least. Good afternoon, Em. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Always great to have Coach M over here with us. Always fun to go through the process with friends, no doubt about that. So another good day in energy. Keep an eye on that 200. I don't expect it to be a big deal, but it is some resistance that we probably should at least keep an eye on until we get through it. You too, snowed in. Well, I'm snowed in a lot more than M, I think, and I'm sorry, M, because it's no fun. You got a snow day. I think I saw your picture of your son having a nice snow day, so he was probably okay with that. So, over in energy, just continuing that movement. A good solid day for crude, a good solid day for energy after that breakout of that 66. Still room to go. Seasonality wise, this is an area that can make some moves. As long as, at the very least, as long as we hold this breakout, I'll continue to look at it through bullish eyes. Personally, I expect it to continue to work up and try to fill this space that we have. Not really a lot of resistance until we get into the $68, $69 range. That was a top for a while last spring, watching for last spring's breakout. So that will be something we want to keep our eyes out for, I think. But really no resistance, still showing all, the good solid bullish signals that we want to see, at least when we are bullish, above all our moving averages. So another solid day, not spectacular, but a solid day over in energy. As we move into financials, they took a while, and they weren't really pretty about it, but after breaking out here on Friday, or at least knocking on that door, showing that nice upward movement yesterday, a little bit more here today in the financials, up 0.79%, one of our best performing sectors here today as well. We do have a flat 200. I think that's probably a good idea to keep our eyes on that. Beyond that, really not a lot until 2750 to me, at least. So I continue to like this area, as personally, and I've felt this way a while, and maybe it's not true, but I feel like I've liked financials better than most people I talk to, the other coaches including, but I still like it. I don't love it. I like materials better. I like energy better. I like healthcare better, but I like this break. Personally, I think there's still some room within the financial sector for some runners. So should be a fun one to follow wherever you find yourselves. Definitely a good solid day here today. Over in industrials, they're so predictable now. It's just another slow, steady climb here today. That's just what industrials do now. Really not a lot to say other than thank you for being a nice, well-behaved sector as of late, industrial sector. As we continue that slow march, but really very strong, it's not been fast, but it's been strong, I think, into our resistance in that $77 ballpark. So we still got a little room to go before we are going to challenge what was, some fairly significant resistance. Might be something to keep an eye on as a profit-taking zone or something like that, but a little bit of room to go before we have to have that conversation. Tech, of course, the NASDAQ and tech just do not want to get involved. And just another day, another doji hanging around at that 200 period moving average. Just, it's just not getting moving. Maybe it will. It's not like it's much like the NASDAQ. I don't think it's doing anything wrong. It's just not really doing anything right. Overall, the signals, I believe, still are more bullish than bearish. But it's just having a heck of a time breaking through, catching any momentum. If it ever can, there is some room here, but we are going to have to, it's one of those things, you're going to have to prove it to me. I don't like when I see the market performing well and then somebody not getting involved in the action. It's fine not to be, the top performer for a day or a week or whatever, but boy, they're just having a really hard time getting any momentum going. Now, maybe they just needed a good scolding and tomorrow will be the day. Right? I would guess we'll have to wait and see. But much like the NASDAQ, just having a very difficult time establishing any momentum in tech right now. Over in staples, as you can see, I got rid of the old trend line because we've taken that out. So no worries here. We are continuing to battle at this old support zone. This is a very mixed bag, in my opinion. There's good-looking charts within the sector, and there's some pretty unappealing-looking charts within the sector. So overall, I continue to shy away from it as a collective unit. Individually, I am okay with individual components within the sector, but collectively, it's just not done anything wrong. It's just not done. Again, it's not really, I just haven't liked it very much during the whole run. And again, part of it probably is relatively speaking. I've always had something that I thought I had reasons to like better. I've never felt that it was bad. But I've just never felt like it was the place I wanted to be. And I still feel that way. Beyond this, though, there is some upside. There's not a lot of resistance if we can ever clearly break through this. We do have some room to run, as we talked about yesterday. So maybe that will change my opinion. But it seems like these days, no matter what the staple sector is doing, there's always somebody else that I like better. And so today is no different, but continuing to kind of use that old floor as some resistance in the shorter term over there. In utilities, just continuing that nice march up towards that 57 or thereabouts level of resistance. Not a lot to say here. I was looking at some stocks earlier, and there are definitely utility stocks that are breaking out of, overhead resistance, all-time highs. So still continues to look pretty solid to me. It is utility, so I'm generally going to like other areas better from a swing trading perspective. But I do like the way it's behaving. I do like that there's not a lot of overhead for a little while longer. So just another good solid day for the utilities. Can't really say the same thing for our friends in healthcare. CVS largely responsible for that, I believe. They reported earnings, before the open. I guess last night after the close, and forecast was weak, down some 7%. Here on the day-to-day, gap down, took the sector down with it. The sector fought back, today, closing pretty flat, showing a little bit of relative strength. But CVS definitely threw a little bit of cold water on that march up to 94 or 93.50 resistance here. We'll see where that one takes us. Overall, the signs are still there. Overall, I still do like this sector, CVS notwithstanding. They're kind of on the timeout list or potential bearish watch list for next week or something like that. But definitely not getting in on the action today. No doubt about that. What was CVS responsible for some or all? I guess that's probably a matter of opinion. I believe they were part of it, not all of it, of course. There are a few smaller healthcare companies that didn't light the world on fire with their earnings either. So little light on the earnings front. Overall for the healthcare sector, not bad, but not great, is kind of the tale of the healthcare sector, I think, this past earnings season. Discretionary, just doing what it does. It's like a weird version of the industrial sector. It continues to grind to the upside slowly but surely, taking out challenge after challenge, but not with the same conviction that some of these other sectors are doing. This resistance level up here, definitely a big price point, in my opinion. We've got a little room before we have to test it. Beyond that, I'm probably going to really like this sector. Just looking at the ETF outright, we've got a whole lot of space to potentially work with if and when we break that 112. Now, we still got to get there. We still have to break through it. But beyond that, assuming we're able to, a lot of room to the upside still, in my opinion, and not a lot of overhead resistance to potentially get in our way. So right now, I like other areas better. Break of 112, I'll probably be bumping these guys up pretty high on my list of favorites. But another slow, steady, yet unspectacular day for the discretionary sector. Little bit of selling early in the day in real estate as it finally got some profit taking to step in, as it's been known to do. Basically, it got down on the intraday and buyers came right back in. Just a ton of strength overall in this sector. And for swing traders, REITs probably are our primary thing that we're trading as swing traders. But that doesn't mean that other people aren't. And real estate continues to show great strength, really some pretty good selling early in the day, catching an intraday low, working up and closing yet again above that 9 exponential moving average. I would love to see a pullback. I am pulling for a pullback within this sector. Will I get it? I have my doubts, but we have, seen a little bit of, sidewaysy drift, right? So it's not quite had the same conviction that it did as it broke that all-time high. And that's something that's, not bothered me necessarily, but I think worth noting, we took out that all-time high and really just, at least as of right now, haven't really generated much. And many of these charts look very nice. I think one thing that we might be running into, a lot of them still haven't broken out. A lot of the real estate stocks I've looked at least are knocking on the door of the breakout, but haven't actually broke through resistance. And so maybe that's what's happening here. The sector is overall strong. I think anybody can see that with the movement that we've seen, but some of the individual components are still trying to break through. Some of them already have, but there are definitely some that are still kind of knocking on the door, trying to push through that. And that might be what it takes to continue this upward movement, or maybe we need a little bit of a pullback before we take another run at it. Beyond that, what can you say other than it continues to show really great strength, really great resolve? Probably not my favorite place to look for trading opportunities right now, but a nice pullback, I could change my mind. Just saying, real estate sector, if you're interested in what I care about, I don't think you are, but you never know. Lastly, communication services, much like tech, just having a hard time getting going. And again, with Facebook and Google not really showing, not really weakness, but not showing strength either, at least right now, just hard for this sector as a whole to get going. You had quite a bit of selling in the gaming stocks here today. Continues to be a very volatile area, an area that I'm generally speaking not all that interested in right now until that volatility dies down. Plus, I'm a disgruntled gamer, so I always have to be careful with gaming companies because I'm always mad at them for one reason or another. So when I'm seeing bearish signals, am I really seeing them, or is that my bias coming out? I try to be as objective as possible, but as a longtime dork playing video games, it's hard to sometimes. So continues to be very volatile, though. In the gaming sector right now, not a lot of movement in the communication services right now. Again, like we talked yesterday, it's really hard for these guys to get moving substantially without at least one of the Facebook or Google showing some movement along with them. Doesn't mean we won't see it. Might see it tomorrow, but we're still not seeing it here today. So much like tech, just does not want to seem to get in on the action, at least right now. So as you can see, pretty solid day in the market, not a lot change, continuation for the most part, maybe a little bit of profit taking. Real estate, something we haven't seen a lot of lately, but certainly didn't do anything, in my opinion, technically wrong. Nice breakout over in the materials, no doubt about that. So just another solid day in the market as the bulls continue to have a pretty good handle on this thing. Of course, the VIX is going to continue to work down as the market likely continue as the market continues to move up. That's usually the way this thing works. Today is no exception. Again, it's just right now we feel like we have a handle on things, right? Whether we do or not, only time's going to tell. But right now we feel like, yeah, we've got a good handle on who this market is. It's looking for good reasons to buy. It's been pretty responsive when it breaks a level of resistance to see some movement. A lot of sectors showing some pretty good strength. So no surprise the VIX down a little bit here today. Dollar was down early, worked into that 50-period moving average. Metals were up early, as has happened. And of course, is oftentimes the case, dollar started rising. Metals took a little bit of profit taking. Nice little bounce off of that 50-period moving average here today. While I am not of the school of thought, I could understand if we see some upward movement. I could understand the pullback argument within the dollar. Again, we need that upward movement. We'll always need that, in my opinion, for confirmation. And I still maintain that this is overall neutral, and I will continue to treat it as such. But I could see the argument if we see some upward movement off of today's candle, off of those moving averages, pushing back above this 96.50. Well, it's not actually 96.50, but that's just what I call it. Some upward movement. I could see the case for the pullback. I really could. I don't think I'm there personally, but I would understand the argument, at least as it currently looks. And if we break today's low, I would expect it to easily work back to 96. Again, for me, there's so many easier charts, I guess, is the way I would put it. So many charts that look and don't have, look at this. We're getting in here, then what do I think about 97 or 97 and a quarter or 96? If it's messy, and I believe this one is, it's just because it's an fairly long-term, or at least medium-term sideways range, I'm not all that interested in messing around with it. I'm the type of trader to play at the edges, play where there's space. And right now, when there's lots of challenges, you guys probably know me well enough to know that I'm a coward, and challenges scare me when it comes to this stuff. So nice movement, though, my opinion notwithstanding. Nice response off of that 50 and that 20-period moving average today, no doubt about that. Over in the metals, we did work our way up, and then the last part of the trading day, we'll just go into an hourly chart, did see some selling, to close the last few hours of the day off. Not a big deal, in my opinion. Certainly hasn't changed anything on our daily time frame by any stretch of the imagination. But as the dollar was kind of rallying, metals were kind of reversing, seeing some profit taking. Not able to give us another green candle. I guess that might be a little greedy. It never hurts to ask, but another green candle may be a little too greedy, especially after yesterday's movement. Overall, continues to perform very nicely from a bullish point of view. We all know that really resistance, we might have different numbers. I've heard 1360, I've heard 1380. I will kind of keep an eye on both of those areas personally, but we still have some room to run before we face a significant level of resistance, at least in my opinion. Over in gold continues to be, if not my favorite place, definitely one of them. Pullback, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a pullback, but it doesn't mean I expect one either. So a lot of strength. Now, silver, the interesting one, we actually briefly broke back above that old floor and worked right into that high from our last run here before selling off and clearly closing down below that today. I do think that the way we've moved today is actually put together a fairly interesting scenario potentially as a theoretical buyer if we take out these highs as kind of confirmation for that break. Yeah, I think now that we've tested, we know this old floor, we know that price movement from when we tried to break it, back in January. Now we see a second time of bumping into that same price. I think a break of that could be maybe the confirmation that I need at least that we are going to continue to run. Now, overall, I do expect that to eventually happen. It's hard to love gold and hate silver, I think. I still like gold better, but a break above that, I will definitely be interested in silver if wherever we have this, whether you think it's already happened, you're looking at those highs from January and today, or you're looking at something else entirely. I think the one thing we can all agree on is there's not a lot of significant resistance beyond that. We're going to have some short-term stuff. We did have a lot of bumping into our head just below $17, around $16.90, last spring. So an area we'll be keeping an eye on. Beyond that, really not a lot up into the 17.25 range. So there's lots of space for this for silver to work through if we can ever break. At least I think there is. Very interested, just not until I'm sold that it's broke above that. And I think today's price action off of that same high before, a close above that, I think I will call that a breakout personally. We'll see if we get it. We'll see if I should. Over in natural gas, doing exactly what I'm wanting. This is what I want. I want another week of this. If we're having this conversation next week at this time, I'm going to be thinking there might be a trade actually worth taking on natural gas if we break to the upside. Now, I need another week, which means I got to get through one more weekend and a few more days staying in this trading range. But every day that we're in this range is one day closer to me being comfortable. Hey, if this does break to the upside, we could at least talk, which is something that natural gas and I haven't done for quite some time. As you guys know, we're not on speaking terms as of right now. Just been too much of a troubled child lately, but sideways movement a little bit more interesting. We'll see if we're having that conversation tomorrow, much less a week from now. And lastly, over in crude, another solid day here in the crude department. Of course, we had that little breakout on Monday, Tuesday, developed that little intraday high. We took that high out early in the day and really, really ran. There just wasn't much beyond us, right? A lot of space, or at least some space for us to work moving forward. This is just going to be one of those areas as bulls that we're going to have to deal with several challenges along the way. We're approaching, that old trend line that I had on. I was able to get rid of it because it's lined up, in my opinion, nice enough with this old floor, old ceiling. So at this 59 marker or thereabouts, in my opinion, that's a challenge. Beyond that, next challenge is going to be up here around 62. Beyond that, we're going to have the 200. So this is just one of those situations. Who knows how far it's going to run? We'll see if it can fill up this first level of space before we get too excited about it filling up the second, right? But I don't really see any technical reason why it's not going to at least push that $59 mark or approximately so. There's not a lot of resistance here to hold us down, but we're going to have challenges along the way. And how we handle that is probably going to be determined by our rules, and how aggressive we are and all of that fun stuff. So we'll watch it play out in real time, of course. We've got a little more room before we work into that 59 or thereabout price range, which will be our first, in my opinion, at least resistance level that we want to be thinking about. Probably for me, I think that is a profit-taking zone. Can always move back in on a breakout if and again, I'm kind of a wimp, so, take that with a grain of salt. But I think for me, that 59 is a profit-taking zone. Pull back, maybe an opportunity to get back in. Breakout, definitely open to getting back in. But I think 59 is a profit-taking zone personally. I know I might not be in the majority of thinking that, but that's okay. Lots of challenges of resistance ahead, but good day today, right? Maybe we get there, maybe we don't. Maybe we win, several fights like we've seen so many other areas do. Beyond, whatever happens, that's in the future. Today, really solid movement off of that breakout from the last couple of days. So overall, I think a pretty solid day in the market. Most things, in my opinion, at least, kind of did what they were supposed to do. Continuing to show more bullish signals. Still not seeing any bearish signals. Eventually, they're going to come, but it isn't to date, at least. We are getting closer and closer to resistance. The one thing that is kind of weird is, how lazy NASDAQ has been. Everything else, they kind of alternate. Some days Russell's better, some days Dow, sometimes S&P. NASDAQ just, I don't know what their deal is. We do have some overhead that we're going to have to be dealing with in the overall market in the relatively near future. But for the time being, I continue to look at it from a bullish perspective. I don't really see any signals from anything other than very short, intraday timeframes that there is any reason to not continue to be bullish in the market. So happy day, nice solid day. I love when the market's well behaved. I love when things do what they're supposed to do. I am a boring guy when it comes to trading. And I'd like to think not so boring in other areas, but who knows, maybe I'm boring in those areas too. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do the market recap here today. But as always, it is my pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time. It's great to have you guys with me, and I hope you had a fantastic trading day yourselves. If you are new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, and join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter to keep up with us. Some of the things we're running into during the market days. I'm not a huge Twitter guy. I'm getting there, but I really like it as a tool to communicate with our team because it's really easy to do. Oh, that's interesting. I'll tweet it out. So join us over there. We'd be happy to have you. You can also find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter if you're ever looking for me as well. That is where you can find me. If you enjoyed the market recap, it is always helpful and appreciated if you do give it a thumbs up to let us know that we're on the right track. Let YouTube know that we're on the right track. If you're catching this later in the day, feel free to add any comments. We're always interested in hearing what other traders have to say. I get the platform. I get to sit and yap and yap and yap. I still want to know what you guys think. So, never be afraid to tell me if you think I'm a crazy person, if you're seeing things a little different. I'd love to hear it. So, Em and I tried to invite Em to join our group, and I couldn't because I don't even know what it was. Em, we figured it out. But, we're some Twitter noobs. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for your time, guys. It's always great to see you. Always fun to do this. A lot more fun to do this with friends. So you guys have a great Wednesday afternoon. Get ready for another exciting Thursday here tomorrow, and I will see you same time, same channel. So thanks again, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon, and see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.